Hi everyone, in this video I'll be teaching you the technique for OSL, Object Source Lighting. That's anytime you see the light coming off of a light source here, like off of his flaming sword. You can see here I've already primed where the flames are going to be with a bone white from P3. Now in this video I'll be using three colors, Flash Gitz yellow, Troll Slayer orange, and Nephiston red, all from Citadel. So I've got a nice dry layer of this white on there. I probably could have had a second layer of the base, but ultimately that'll be okay. I'm going in and I'm layering in a nice thin layer of the Flash Gitz yellow. Now I'm not covering every little tiny bit of white. Deep down in the recesses, I am going to go ahead and let some of that be peeking through. You want to go from the lighter shades near the closest to the center, the source of the flame. And for this, that's coming off of the sword. As fire gets cooler, it's going to get darker, which is why off towards the tips, that's where we'll get the red. Now that is 2 layers of Flash Gitz yellow. It's nice and thinned down, and it's very, very dry before I start to go in with my Troll Slayer orange. Again, I'm not covering up everything. This is a thinned down layer, but then I dab it off onto a towel before I go in, and I'm just pulling across the top layer here, the raised areas, and I'm not worried about working down deep into all of the cracks. When I come through for a second pass, I will go ahead and let that get in just a little bit deeper, but you don't want to cover up all of the yellow that you laid down first. I'm using light, long strokes here in order to make sure that I leave some of that yellow behind, so we have an eventual nice gradient. Turning things over and hitting it off of the back as well. Where things are smoother and where I know eventually it's going to get darker, I'm not quite as worried, and I can paint a little more quickly. We've got 2 layers on there. They're nice and dry, and now I'm going in with this Nephiston red. This is just going along the very tops of the ridges and the edges of these flames that are coming up off of the sword. This actually indicates the coolest part of the fire. But ultimately, we're looking for this nice gradual gradient. I probably could have thinned this red down a little bit more and done it with 2 layers. I didn't. If you do that, it will just give you a better sense of the gradient. Again, I'm being very careful. I'm not covering up all of the orange, and I'm just keeping this on the farthest away bits of the flame. Now that we've got the sword finished, we can start to look at where it's going to be hitting the skin. So I'm looking at, well, with this lights being cast, where is it going to land? It's going to hit his arm the most, down on his hand, and just the right side of his chest. And that's where I'm going to start to put in my Flash Gitz yellow. Now this is very, very thinned down, and it's a little watery. Now, if you're new to OSL, don't get discouraged. I'll tell you right now that OSL, to me, doesn't look very good until it's completely finished. I'm not worrying about getting deep into all of the cracks. There are places where I do want to have shadow. Here, I'm pulling this light just right up on the edge of the metal. Pulling it down here where it's going to be hitting his side, but I'm not covering up where a shadow will be cast by his arm. I like to take my time and keep checking in. Is it hitting, coming off of that sword? It's all the way down there onto the legs, it's on the other arm, and a lot of this light is hitting the side of his face, as you can see. Now I'll start to layer in another very thin down coat of Troll Slayer orange. And I'm getting this along the edges of where the yellow was laid down. I don't necessarily want to cover everything up. It's also getting a little bit further out so that it isn't always just laying over the top of the yellow. It's getting onto some of those other areas as well. It's giving us different gradients. You can see it's a lot brighter when it hits the metal, when it hits the white. I'm getting it onto some of those bones. And again, it doesn't absolutely look fantastic yet, but continue to layer in, add more and more coats of these very thin colors, and eventually you're gonna come through at the very end with a dry brush technique as well. And it's really gonna look nice for you. Keep double checking, where is the light coming from? What's the direction that it hits? And finally, with a last little bit of dry brushing with that Troll Slayer orange, things look really nice for you. We have all of this area where the light's coming off. You can see it's brighter. Well, that's where those layers of the yellow underneath are coming through. So there you have it. Thanks to everybody who likes, shares, and subscribes. Please don't forget to share this with your friends, especially if you know that they're looking at doing something like this OSL. And comment in the sections below. Let me know if this was something that was helpful for you. I want to say a huge thank you to all of our followers, especially to all of our Patreon patrons. And to you, Tucker. You're an awesome person. You know what you do for us, and it's really great. If you want to become one of our patrons, you can head over to our Patreon and find the level that's right for you. But until next time, I'm Ryan, and this is Roll for Initiative. Bye.